Good morning. Thanks for being here. We are here to tell you about the Encore Louisville program. Um, let's start with introductions really quickly. We'll tell you who we are, and we'd love to get just an introduction from our guests on the call as well. We've got some alumni and current participants in the Encore Louisville program that we're going to meet here as well, and then we'll let them have the floor a little bit later in the presentation. But we are thrilled that you're here. Now, my name is Aaron Miller. I am the Director of Community Leadership at the Center. So I oversee the Leadership Louisville Bingham Fellows, Ignite Louisville, Focus, and Encore Louisville. And I am the primary facilitator and the point of contact for the Encore Louisville program. So if we convince you that this program is a good use of your time, then you and I will get to be buddies, which I really hope happens. Amy, I'll let you introduce yourself next.
Sure. My name is Amy Jewell. I'm the engagement specialist. So I get people involved with the center with our 5 civic programs and green rooms. And I'm happy to be here this morning.
So I want to go around real quick then. Let's first introduce the current participants so you'll know who is here that is already in the Encore Louisville program. And then I'll just call out names, and if you would just unmute for a second and just tell us who you are and maybe a couple seconds about yourself or what led you to be interested in Encore, or if you're an alumni of another Leadership Louisville program, those would be great things. But let's start. JR, you want to introduce yourself real quick?
Yeah, I'm JR Curtin, and originally out of public broadcasting, but for the last number of years, I've been faculty at Indiana and faculty at U of L, teaching mediation, restorative justice, and several other courses. Graduate of Leadership Louisville, of Bingham Fellows, Leadership Kentucky, and have been with Encore from the beginning.
All right. Al Cornish.
I'm Al Cornish, retired healthcare executive. I now operate 2 small consulting groups, Closing the Gap Consulting LLC and Culture Docs. And what we're doing is we work with organizations to build healthy workplace cultures. I am a Louisville connector through the Leadership Louisville Center. I'm a Bingham Fellows graduate, a Leadership Louisville graduate, and I'm a former facilitator for the Ignite program, which I love. And I'm just really delighted to be here with you today.
Okay, thanks, Al. Al was one of the best facilitators Ignite ever had. Beth Lutowski, please introduce yourself.
Good morning. My name is Beth Lutowski, and I am a graduate of Focus Louisville and Bingham Fellows and Encore and mentor for Ignite. I'm not from Louisville. I've been here about 10 years. My background is in retail and technology, and currently I have my own consulting company here in town, and I consult for operations and project management for small businesses, and glad to be here with you today.
Awesome. Well, it's good to have everyone on the call, and congratulations on your very recent retirement, Angela. For the next few minutes, we're going to give you an overview of the program. I'll kind of go over the nuts and bolts of how it works, what it's about, what the goals are. We will get a few minutes to hear from JR, Al, and Beth about their experience. Amy will jump in and tell you about the process of applying for the program if you're interested in proceeding, and then we'll just open it up for Q&A. But if you have questions at any time, feel free to type them in the chat box, or just there's not too many of us that you couldn't just raise your hand or unmute, and feel free to ask questions as we go along. And we'll just dive in then. So what is Encore? Well, let's start with what is Leadership Louisville, because I think most of you had not been through a Leadership Louisville program prior to this. So we are a nonprofit organization ourselves. We are over 40 years in Louisville. And as we talked about, Sonia, I think you said you've gone through leadership programs in other towns, and there is one in most cities and counties around the country. There is a leadership program like us. We are different in that we are one of the largest in the nation. We actually have a variety of programs, everything from emerging leaders to our senior leaders. We've got programs that do impact projects and programs that are just 1- and 2-day training courses. And our goal is really to inspire and equip leaders to be better and then go out in the community and do better. And I don't think there's anything we do that is more about that mission than Encore Louisville. I know when it was created back in 2014, with some of the folks on this call, Beth and JR were there from the beginning, and Al joined us a couple years in. But the program was really driven by our alumni to say, okay, I've done Leadership Louisville. I'm now further along in my career. I don't need to network necessarily, but I like hanging out with the people that I have worked with in community over the years. And I want to give back, but I also don't necessarily want to sign up for 27 boards that are going to be 3 years long each. So how can I use my skills and talents to give back to the community? So we developed this program here in Louisville in collaboration with our alumni. Beth and JR were critical to that. So it's for our senior leaders, folks that have sometimes retired, sometimes still very active in their primary career, sometimes have maybe retired from the thing they did for 20 or 30 years, but are now embarking on a next career or an independent consulting business. There's a little bit of everybody in the class. The class size is, right now there's 43, 44 people in the class. Over the years, it has varied between about 35 and 45. And unlike programs that you may have gone through, like Leadership Madison County, I think you said, Sonia, where you just do it one time and it's done, Encore is a program that you can come back in year after year if you're finding that it is a good fit for you, and the nonprofits in our community get to benefit from all of the wisdom that we've got in that room. So the mission of this program is twofold. So it is to leverage the talent, skills, and experience of our leaders who are transitioning potentially out of the workforce, and then those participants pool their expertise to help the nonprofits in our community manage critical strategic issues. So basically, we put together a group of amazing people, and then the nonprofits come to us and say, we could use some help, and then we form small teams to go work with those nonprofits for a period of about 3 months per project. And that's kind of how we work. The program meets quarterly, each of our program days, and we've got the dates on one of these slides here. But it's January, April, July, October. We usually meet from about 10 to 3. It's virtual right now, and we'll stay virtual until it's safe and everyone's comfortable coming back in person. But when that happens, we'll meet in person for those days and have lunch and hang out for a few hours. And at every one of our program days, we will meet new nonprofits who need help and form teams to work with them. And then we'll hear report outs from teams that have been working over the prior program cycle to see what was asked, what were they able to accomplish in the time frame. And twice a year, we have kind of an open request for proposals from the nonprofit community where they submit to the program what they need help with. We actually do that process in combination with our Ignite Louisville program, which was mentioned earlier, and it will come up again. Ignite Louisville is for our 25 to 40-year-old emerging leaders. It is a skills-based and leadership development training program, but it has a team project component. So when the nonprofits tell us what their issues are, those proposals go to a committee to decide whether that's best for our emerging leaders program or whether that's best for our Encore Louisville program. And there's a little bit of vetting that goes in, but it's also, there's always some surprise when you get into the project to find out if the issue is really what that organization needs, or if there's some additional things that need to be handled with that organization. I know our alumni can tell you sometimes what the nonprofit asks for isn't what they need. And the beauty of Encore is we've got the skills to help them with whatever their needs are. So again, when we get together for program days, right now again on Zoom, we'll hear from the teams that have finished their work. We will have a marketplace is what we call. We'll shop for new projects. You decide whether you want to be on a team. We don't place you on teams, and you don't have to do a project every cycle. There's 4 project cycles in a year. We ask you to do 2 a year. Some folks do 4 a year. Some folks do 2 or 3. It's really, that's one of the things that was baked into this program, is that flexibility. If you know you're going to be out of town, or you're going to be watching kids and grandkids for certain periods of time, you're like, I don't know if I want to do a project right now. I'll let somebody else take over this cycle, or maybe none of them really speaks to you. So we're not going to put you on a team. You're going to self-select teams. Teams are 3 to 5 people typically. And each project is probably 20 hours or so. I don't know if there's really truly an average. Some are less. Some they get the teams will never, like there's JR, I'm sure can tell you about the Metro United Way team. They've been doing that one for like 1.5 years. It's supposed to be 3 months. They've probably put in 100 hours each, but that's a choice they're making and not anything this program wants you to do. And then on the program days, we'll also bring in different speakers. Lately, we haven't done a lot of that because of the pandemic, and because some of the speakers we've had is our own teams working on developing new initiatives from Encore. But we have brought in foundation leaders, we've brought in marketing leaders, we've brought in different skill sets to speak to the class about what's going on in the community, but also how they can be better engaged in the nonprofit sector. So what kind of projects are these? So sometimes it's board development. We've got a great nonprofit, our board's not engaged, our board's not big enough. Can you help us? We have organizational challenges or structural challenges. Right now, a lot of the projects we're getting are COVID related. We've had to pivot from what our primary purpose was to serve some needs that have arisen, and can you help us think through how to do? I think there's a team right now working with a jobs program that used to do job fairs, and we're trying to figure out how to do drive-in job fairs. Doing pre-work for strategic planning. The team in 3 months is not going to take on a strategic planning project, but sometimes they can put a nonprofit in a better position, thinking through some facilitated conversations sometimes really help nonprofits determine what their priorities should be. Evaluating existing strategic plans, looking at programs, mentoring, looking at sustainability, not fundraising, I'll get to that. And then, like I said, pivoting, especially in COVID-19, that has been a lot of the asks we're getting from the nonprofit community. So what don't they do? Fundraising. We're not going to say, go help this nonprofit raise $50,000. Sometimes what they need is help planning for a fundraising campaign, or thinking through their marketing materials, or helping define their mission so that they can be better fundraisers. But it's not going to be asking you to call your friends and sell tickets, sell sponsorships, give them a database of people you know. It's also not going to be at the other end busy work. So this is not, we need help stuffing envelopes. We need help cleaning out the cabinets. I mean, it's not intern work. This would be consulting type work, strategic thinking, and helping this nonprofit find ways to increase their capacity to ultimately make our community better for everybody so they can serve more people. And I'm going fast. I'm going to keep going through this. If you guys have questions, again, you can hold them or you can throw them in the chat room, whatever you like. So what's the commitment from you? So I said some of this already, but we want you to come to the program days. The more you're there, the better it is for the whole group. We want you to be in 2 teams per year, and we don't care which team, and we don't care which. Go ahead, Amy.
Aaron, I think you froze for a second, so you might want to back up a little bit.
Am I back?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. Thank you for telling me that. Where did you lose me? I'll start at the beginning of the slide.
Start at the beginning of the slide, please.
I apologize if this is boring for a moment. So we want you to attend the program days, and again, there's 5. That's January, April, July, October, and then the next January. So every January we have a few new people join, and we say farewell to a few people that are not going to renew for the next year. Be on 2 team projects, and you can pick whether it's the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th cycle. We don't care if you want to do them in that middle of the year, if you want to do them early in the year, totally up to you. Once you join a team, we do want you to be active and participate and show up to those meetings and engage. And we want you at the end of this project cycle to help the team with the evaluations, making sure the nonprofit submits evaluations. And then every year we also lean on, I think, Margaret, you said you were here because you know someone that's currently in the class. We love it when you can help spread the word about the program. Some of our best participants have been sent to us by current participants. Also any nonprofits you're engaged with that could use a team from Encore, we always need help spreading the word about what this program does. One other thing I'll mention too, and I throw this in there, I think it came up earlier, our Ignite program, which also does team projects. One of the really cool things that they get the benefit of is we ask the Encore Louisville participants if anyone would like to mentor a team from Ignite. So there are 6 teams in an Ignite class. And so if working with next generation talent is something that interests you, especially the Encore folks that have been through a few project cycles can really help these Ignite teams that are also engaging in nonprofit work, often the first of its kind for them, where they're engaging with a nonprofit. Those are 6-month-long projects, but the Encore mentors, sometimes it's 2 or 3 times you'll meet with that team, all virtually right now. Some of the mentors like show up at every one of their meetings, and that's awesome, but you don't need to do that. I know Harold is famous for like becoming an extra team member for Ignite, but that's not what we're looking for. But I say all of that to say that you can make of this what you want. If you like the nonprofit that you do a project with and they ask you to stay on as a board member or as a volunteer longer term, that's awesome. We have had people that come to Encore that get connected to nonprofits who leave Encore because they found a place and they found a purpose working with one of these organizations, and they want to devote their time there. And for us, that's a win. It's all about getting our community to a better place and getting people more engaged in helping our nonprofit sector. Okay, I'm going to shut up there, and I am going to let some of our current participants talk for a couple minutes each, and we've met them, but if you would maybe start, JR, by just telling us, and I think we sent some pre-questions, and I don't care which one of them you want to talk about some projects you've done, about how you've been able to give back or how the program has helped you stay connected. But I'll throw it to JR and then Al and then Beth, just because that's the order you're on my Zoom screen, and let you guys talk for a couple minutes, and then we'll open it up for some more questions. So JR, please share with us.
Thank you. As I said, I've been with Encore from the beginning. It happened because of a very dear friend. His name is Ken Middleton. We lost Ken last year. But Ken called me one day and said, I've got this crazy idea, this thing I want to do with Leadership Louisville, and are you interested? And I said, Ken, I'll just do it to come hang out with you. So he was, we're both former broadcasters, and it was just a good chance to connect. And Beth joined us right after that, and several other people joined us. And it was great to reconnect with some people that way. But to me, what's been so exciting about Encore has been we have a lot of very, very good not-for-profits within our community. Some very small ones, some very large ones, but just lots and lots of wonderful agencies that do a lot of things to help the people in our community. What I realized with Encore, which is so special, is that most of those not-for-profits don't have anyone who cares for them, who can give them advice, can provide consulting to them, can bring in a high level of expertise for things that they need, provide mentorship, just all of the kinds of things that Aaron led to, and realize that we're kind of unique in that ability to do that. So in my time here, I've worked on projects that have ranged from the Metro United Way project that I'm on now. I'm long-term, had been on the board of Metro United Way for a lot of years, so it was easy to go back and help a bit. I'm also a former chairman of United Way of Kentucky, so that made some sense. But they needed some real help looking at how they pivot their fundraising within United Way, and how they're being, conditions now are they're going to move away from, not totally move away, but the workplace campaigns that they have traditionally done really tend to be from a bygone era, and that they need to really be looking at new ways of how they engage with their donors and new ways of moving forward. So our team has spent almost a year with them. But during COVID, we also pivoted and created a program inside Encore with Aaron's help that are called Middleton response teams, named for Ken Middleton, who I mentioned before. And the response teams were set up to be able to do very quick things for agencies that are struggling under COVID, to be able to jump in, help them with stuff. And we're presently working with 3 or 4 agencies doing that, and also have pulled out of that a plan to do kind of 3 ongoing teams. One especially important of just being able to provide mentorship and help for any agencies that are thinking about merger or partnerships or cooperatives. And we have a number of our people within Encore that have been through mergers, did a lot of merger work in their corporations, understand the cultural changes, the things that have to happen. And so that team is forming and may stay in place for a long time for anybody who would come to Leadership Louisville looking for some help with that. Probably personally, one of the most exciting things about this was that I thought I knew most of the leaders in town, and have found that I really didn't. That there are tons of people that I have met in Encore and had a chance to work shoulder to shoulder with that have been just wonderful leaders, and that I have learned from, that I have shared with. And so I'm blessed with having really opened my network up even more with some wonderful people that have come to Encore and been part of Encore. And it's especially enriching when we have people who come into Encore who are either not originally from Louisville or have come back to Louisville. And that really adds to the enrichment of this, of being able to get to know our classmates and be able to call on each other. So besides the traditional, I've selected this team I want to be on and I'm working on that, and then in the next cycle I'll pick another one and work on that. In between cycles sometimes, or even during a cycle, I'll get a call or someone else will get a call from a team that's working and say, we have a team that has a very specific need right now to come in for one session and work through this thing that you do so well. Would you come one morning, meet with our not-for-profit and work them through that exercise that you do? And you go and you do that and you contribute and you leave. And the team stays with them and works through it. And so there's some short-term things that happen that way, which can be very exciting. And then periodically we'll have a project that comes in with maybe sometimes with a smaller nonprofit that has a real need, but it's possibly not a need that needs a full Encore team, but just needs a couple of meetings or a little bit of consulting from a couple of us to come and help. And in those cases, usually Aaron will reach out and say, is anybody in the group willing to spend a couple of days, a couple of hours with this group? They need these kinds of things. And those have been very fulfilling as well, to just go and help, get in, do something, help them, and then move forward. And virtually every time any of us have done that, it's made a huge difference for that not-for-profit. And it's personally made a difference for us. So I have stayed actively involved, and have continued to be involved and will continue to stay with Encore as long as I can provide something, as long as I can do something that I think is helpful to the group. And I'll get off this and turn it over to my 2 colleagues that are here, who are both brilliant and very special, and I've enjoyed working with them both. But kind of the final thing I'll say about myself is that I have been described by people, and I still kind of describe myself as a serial social entrepreneur with an overcommitment addiction. And so I will stay at it.
That's awesome, JR. Thank you very much. And Al, let's throw to you and hear a little bit about your Encore Louisville experience.
Yes, indeed. It's always difficult to follow JR, but just in the way of just a little bit of background, I met JR when I was working in the corporate world, and he was working with a mediation program. So I got to know JR a little bit and the work that he did. On the other hand, now I met Beth, and Beth and I used to practice social distancing before social distancing was in. She and I worked out together at Heiser Health. And she worked out on the #1 machine. I worked out on the #3 machine. We always had a machine in between us. So I knew them. And then I had a couple other friends who were part of the Encore program. And when I retired, they said to me, "You're going to become an Encore member." And I said, "Really?" And as they talked to me about the benefits of being a member of Encore, it really got me interested and charged up about it. So I want to quickly talk a little bit about a couple of the projects that I've been involved in and really what I've gotten out of it from an experiential standpoint. The first project I worked on was the Louisville Nature Center. And this was a clear example of an organization that thought they needed one thing, but once the team got in and we started working with them, it went off in a totally different direction. And the thing that I've found from the team that I worked with, and sometimes I'm a little bit embarrassed to say this, but I'll say it, and I'm a little bit ashamed of this too, that sometimes I find myself when I'm working with a team, I'm learning more than I'm giving because you work with some brilliant people, JR and Beth. They have expertise in areas that I don't. So I'm constantly learning, and being a lifelong learner, it's a great place to be. But at the same time, when there are opportunities for me to contribute from my areas of expertise, I'm able to do it. So that's one of the things that I really love about this program is that I'm constantly learning from people who are experts. And at the same time, I'm able to contribute where I can contribute. The other thing that I find about the Encore program is when you retire, you start to wonder exactly what you're going to do, how you're going to spend your time. And what it does is it gives you an opportunity to continue to be a contributing member of society. Now, a lot of us do consulting work, but that's for pay. But this, you get a self-fulfillment of helping an organization. And Beth and I worked on a year-long project, and I'm sure she'll talk about it, that there were times when working on that project, I was just amazed at the young leaders that we have in our community and how they are just sponges for the knowledge that we're able to give to them. The last thing I'll say is that what we're able to do for these nonprofits are we're able to give them resources that they couldn't pay for, especially if you're a startup. And you've got people like Beth and JR in a room, you couldn't pay for them. You couldn't afford to pay for them to give you the kind of advice and expertise that they're bringing to it. So for me, it's been a tremendous growth opportunity, and I get to continue to be active and involved in the community, and I get to meet some of the most wonderful leaders in this community, some who I casually know, and now I've got an in-depth understanding of them and knowledge of working with them. And it's been a great experience for me.
All right, thank you very much, Al. I appreciate that. Beth, would love to hear from you for a couple of minutes as well.
So good morning, and I'm glad that you're all here today. And so my story is that it was 2013 when we first got together for Encore. As JR said, we were on the launch committee, and Ben, you mentioned kind of being done with work. So I was finishing formal work, as I call it. And so I needed something to do. And I had just finished being a Bingham Fellow. And so I went to Leadership Louisville and said, I have time on my hands, you need something. And they said, well, we're just starting this new program. So what I liked about Leadership Louisville was the ability to in Bingham Fellows especially, got to meet with nonprofits, and that was what interested me in being part of Encore. So what I'll tell you is that, as Erin said, there's 3 or 4 cycles a year. So we're in year 6. So we've had approximately 20 different cycles, and that's how we refer to a time-bound period where we work with nonprofits. And what's been really great about this is, again, you've already heard about getting to meet people, and you've heard about nonprofits that you don't know. I am also a person who cannot say no. And so good or bad for myself, but I also looked at this as an opportunity that I have been very fortunate. And so I wanted to be able to, like you said, give back, to do something else. So I have consulting work that I charge for, but I take this Encore work that I do as my give back with my opportunity in the community. So one of the items I would like to bring up is, I like to think of it like try before you buy. And what I mean by that is, in some cases, you get to work with nonprofits you've never heard of before. You get to work with nonprofits that, as you've heard, need assistance with something. I have actually joined a board as a result of being with one of the nonprofits. I no longer am on that particular board, but again, I did join because I was so grateful for the work they were doing, and I liked what they were doing, that became important to me as a result. It's a good way for you to keep utilizing your skills and to pick up skills that you don't have. So, well, for example, some people will say, well, this project I don't have skills that this project needs. But what I think the reality is we all know how to manage ourselves and people and teams. And that's really what it's all about when you come together with folks that you may or may not have worked with in the past. And Al's point about the fact that the resources. So what he alluded to is, Al and I started on a project. It was in October of 2019. It was a 1-cycle project. It was with a startup organization that's helping kids to read. And so, like Mom and Apple Pie, right? So who wouldn't want to work with helping kids to read? And after our cycle was over, we realized that the organization, there was more to do. And so what we decided was we actually stayed with them for a 2nd cycle, and that was our choice. And then we worked with them and continued to provide some support. And then in our case, the pandemic hit right after we finished the 2nd cycle. So we actually made the decision that our team became the advisory board for this nonprofit. So we work with them for a full year, and I'm actually still on the finance committee to assist them with the process. I think what's really helpful is, sometimes you don't think that, like, how could my skills be valuable? Like, what do I know that people don't know? And a really good example I'll give is budgeting. So for many of us who are in a professional world, budgeting is what you do, and you do it every year, or you do it personally. But for organizations, sometimes they just don't know where to start. And they have money coming in, and they have expenses going out. And so again, a great example that we were able to do is put together a budget and a finance committee for something that's going to help them endure even after we leave, but they wouldn't have done that without us. Maybe someone else would have helped them, but that's something that we were able to do that's concrete and it's sustainable. I think the most important thing you have to think about is sustainability. Is we always want to make sure that we leave in a position where we didn't just fix something, but we assist the organization in that they can live with on and without us after we leave. And that becomes really important for me, and I know for JR and Al too, because again, for longevity and the fact that the organizations asked for help in the first place. So the other thing I would just offer too is that when I started here, I'm not from Louisville as well. So again, when I left my formal work, I was looking for an opportunity to meet people, and this has been fabulous. Worked with some people multiple times, or sometimes I work on projects just because I want to work with some of the people that are working on the project, because I really enjoy them at this point in time. So that's been really great. While not intentional, I actually had a person who was working on a project found work for me that was about 3-year consulting engagement that I never would have found on my own. But again, that is certainly not one of the expectations of the project, but it turned out it was a great introduction, and he needed somebody and I had the skill. So when you ask about like what's in it for me, I think it's a combination of, if you're interested in doing things for the community, if you want to give back because you have skills that perhaps someone else could use, this would be great. And just meeting people and finding someone to to hang out with, because I have some friends I've made too. So there you go.
Erin, now you're on mute. There you
Well,
go.
I was going to read, all I was going to do was throw to you anyway, Amy. So I know you're going to put your screen share up, and we'll just do, Amy's going to go over the application process real quick, but then we're turning it over to you guys for questions. So feel free to start formulating questions for me, Amy, JR, Al, and Beth. And Amy, I'll let you go over how we can get people to apply for the program.
Perfect, thank you. And while I'm working on sharing my slide, I just want to say that I was actually JR's mentee while I went through Ignite, and it was amazing. And he was by far such a huge help in our success. So I personally know how important the mentorship piece is as being a mentee. So here we go. As Erin mentioned, we have those quarterly sessions, January, April, July, October, January. So it's really important to put these on your calendar now. I will send out all of this information in an email right after this session. So don't feel like you have to hurry and write them all down. We'll send them to you. They are also on the website. And so, you know, a lot of our all of our programs at Leadership Louisville are, you get in what you get out what you put in. And so we do encourage you to put these on your calendar now so that you can join us for the sessions. The application steps are pretty easy. We have an online application. The form, again, will be sent to you right to your inbox right after this is over. That is a pretty simple application. Unfortunately, you cannot save it though. And so what we suggest is filling it out in one fell swoop. So when you've got 30 to 45 minutes sitting down and doing that, there are some short answer questions. So we do suggest that you take maybe some of those short answer questions, put them in a Word document if you want to formulate your answers there, and then sit down to do the application itself. If you wouldn't mind sending me a headshot, that would be great through email. And then the letter of recommendation is optional. And so the letter of recommendation can help boost your application. It can be from a current Encore participant, if you know anyone in the current class, or a past Encore participant, or someone from our board of directors that can help boost your application. And the deadline for those materials is November 13th. I will also include my contact information. So if you need anything, please don't hesitate to give me a call, shoot me a text. I know some of us have already had a few phone calls, so don't hesitate to call me at any point throughout the application process. In terms of program fee, we've been changing this around a little bit, but right now we're $295 is the Encore fee for the program year, and then also our annual membership fee. And so you only have to pay the membership fee, or typically those are separated, but with Encore, we actually embed that cost of the membership fee within the program fee. And that's to cover Aaron's time that he pours into the program, our program team's time as they coordinate the program days. We do encourage that if you are not already a Leadership Louisville graduate, that you go through Focus Louisville at some point. Right now, those dates have been postponed due to COVID, but we will send out the 2021 calendar and encourage you to participate in that program once those are on the calendar. Erin, did you want to add anything? Cool. Okay.
I'll just say that Focus Louisville, if you're not an alumni of any of our programs yet, Focus Louisville is a 2.5-day kind of exploration of the city. It's an amazing program, and we would love for you to consider being part of that once it restarts, if you haven't had any other engagements with the Leadership Louisville Center.
Plus, I hear they have an amazing facilitator. So just kidding, I'm facilitating that now. So
and they do have an amazing facilitator.
Thank you so much. So yes, so program fee is $295. And if you have any questions whatsoever, please don't hesitate to shoot me a text, phone call, email, carrier pigeon. I am here to help you. So please let us know.